Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is The Local Live.
I'm Maura Carlin. Welcome to The Local Live, LMC TV's hyper-local news magazine show. Our goal in launching The Local Live is to put you in the driver's seat, to empower citizen journalists in our community to report on the important issues affecting all of us. Vital to The Local Live is our ability to have timely panel discussions where you, our viewing audience, can participate by phone, by Twitter, by email. So, make a note of the following phone number, Twitter, and email, and join our conversation. Call 698-6808. Tweet us at The Local Live or email us at thelocallive, all one word, at lmc-tv.org. And don't forget that hyphen. We'll talk to you. You can talk to our guests. We'll read your emails and tweets on air as part of the show. Tonight's topic is The Local Live itself. What is it? How did it get started? And where's it going? With me tonight are my co-anchor, Mike Witch, who is a retired video teacher from Mamaroneck High School and presently an adjunct professor at Iona College. Also with me is Eric Lewis, the longtime executive director of LMC TV and a former producer with WNET and Lifetime Television. Now, before we get into our discussion about The Local Live, let's take a look at one of our typical news meetings so you can get an idea of how really crazy we are to try and do this.
Yeah, all right, great.
And then we have the round table
With two reporters.
with two reporters. We have Ashley Helms from the Mamaroneck Review, and then we have Suzanne Rosen from the Daily Voice.
Salmon.
Oh, same. So I think like the topics that we should talk about is what they reported on 2013, what were those highlights, and what are the main issues that we should start paying attention this following 2014.
Agreed.
I don't know why you want to go back a year. That's old news. The highlights, you know, the story about the...
Well, what was your big, I would have said, what was the biggest, what do you think was the biggest story in 2013? Biggest local story in 2013?
Yeah, I
And
think
what do you think?
I wrote him an email when you know, I told him to give directions to the studio. And it said basically, that, what were the most interesting stories of 2013? What stories do you think are going to be emerging?
Well, I also want to know about their process. I mean, what's their day like? What's their, how do they get their news? If they have a comment about print versus electronic delivery, because the Voice is electronic, whereas the Mamaroneck Review is still in paper. Mm-hmm. I'd like to know some of their backstory, like where did they get their training?
I don't think that that's the kind of thing, like to find out that Ashley went to such and such college and then, worked X, Y, and Z, isn't necessarily the greatest interview. If maybe you could get the information, or one of us gets the information from them before we start the roundtable, and it comes out of your mouth and they can add to it.
I think that it could be good that you do an intro about them. Their information is online about who they are, but maybe we could start about what is like an interesting anecdote that you have through these years covering Mamaroneck and Larchmont, or what are those challenges that you face while reporting locally. But I do agree with Maura that their information about where they are, where they went to school, and that's not that relevant. And
Talking about a sentence. I went to Emerson College and I majored in journalism, or I majored in plant psychology, and but I want to be a reporter. That's a sentence. It's not a. I'm not talking 5 minutes.
I'd rather hear what their day is like, and their philosophy. That's I was just trying to speed through the credentials, because the other stuff is more interesting. I also, though, I'm sorry to interrupt. We all learn not to bury the lead, and really the big story is what should we be looking to your coverage of in 24. Do you think?
I think more should just do it. More, this is your baby kind of thing, and you and Mike should work it out.
Gives you an idea of how we work. And don't forget, when you want to comment or ask a question, call us 698-6808, tweet us at The Local Live, or email us at thelocallive@lmc-tv.org. And again, don't forget the hyphen. Mike, I'm going to start with you. There used to be a news show on LMC TV.
There was indeed.
You want to tell us about it and how this venture of The Local Live is different?
Well, you know, we were both on that news show, and Jeff Montanaro was the producer, and that aired almost every week for about 20 years. And it was LMC's first effort at an organized news show. Jeff led it, and it was mainly the news of the week from the Journal News and some e-newsletters that were beginning to show up at that time. And we would get the copy from Jeff and we'd rewrite it. But there was no opportunity for anyone to call in to comment on it. Every once in a while we would have a guest, but that was kind of rare. And also it was, well, I used to crack it was yesterday's news.
Get yesterday's news tomorrow.
Tomorrow, and so there was a timeliness that we didn't have.
Right,
on that show.
and on that timeliness, you come to being able to interact with our viewing audience, and in
Right.
fact, we got a tweet.
Okay.
Somebody wanted to know how long that meeting that we aired took, and did anything get resolved? Always a good question. Yes, we resolved a lot because we are here tonight doing this show. We got it together. We figured out, well, actually, that was for last week's show, which was our first roundtable with reporters. And if you got to see the show, it came out very well. So yes, we resolved things.
And we were there for about an hour and a half.
I
talking.
think that's right. And Eric was with us virtually.
Well, by
phone.
He was by phone.
I was the dial tone that you heard. That
That you heard
my
cutting
phone
off.
kept cutting out, and
I just
you
wanted
know.
to go into that interactive part of it, and
Sure.
I didn't mean to cut you off about the old show. I mean, it was a big endeavor for
huge.
an outside producer, and you've got to give him credit for doing that for that many years.
Jeff was a stalwart in LMC from the very beginning. I mean, he was involved, and he used to work with me at the high school. He was an assistant teacher here, and that gave him familiarity with the equipment, and so he often stayed through the day into the night. We did it on Thursday nights, like we're doing this show.
Right.
And he would record it in bits and pieces on Thursday, and then would take it home, and he personally would cut the entire show together. Edit it together, and then it would air the following week. So yesterday's news, tomorrow.
Right, and that was the timing problem. And by the end, I think we were having guests more. I say that because I was booking them.
Yeah.
Eric, you wanted to join
yeah,
on?
I'm hoping to recruit Jeff and have a little segment in this current Local Live that would be like, Mamaroneck 10 years ago, and we could just show some of the clips that we had there.
I do believe that Jeff still has the library of videos from all those years
Yeah.
of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. That was the name of it. That's
Yeah, that would be great.
That's right. And there are people, and you may know better than I, who started at Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News who actually became professionals in the field.
Yes, and I'm blanking on some of the names.
Of course you are.
But there was a reporter here who went on to Cablevision, and then I believe she went on to Channel 2.
We have another tweet. So someone has tweeted us. It's about me. Thank you. It says, Maura is so cool and direct. How did she learn to be firm as an anchor? Well, how
did you learn that?
Yeah,
I'm
come
going
on,
to.
come on,
I'm
fess
going.
up,
I'm
Maura,
sorry. I'm
come
sorry.
on.
Well,
Yeah.
the firmness comes from being the mother of 3 boys. I was hesitating whether or not to say that.
Oh, no, that's
But
the truth.
frankly, a lot of the skills from being an anchor and from doing news come from being an attorney, and in particular, a litigator. I had to learn to think on my feet. I had to learn to interview, take depositions, and listen to what people said and not follow a script. So that's actually where it came from, and thank you very much for that tweet. Let's move on from, because we haven't had LMC Community News for a while, Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News for a while.
Yes.
Eric, why don't you tell us what you saw as the Local Live, since you've been the engine pushing this train?
Well, for many years, I've been having this thought that it would be great to have a news show that would serve the community, because there doesn't seem to be enough, conglomeration, aggregation of local news that's really, really local to Larchmont and Mamaroneck. The other news outlets kind of handle, wider stuff in Westchester wide, but, I thought that it would really be a good thing for the community to have a place that they can go to tell their stories, people in the community to tell their stories. Also, what we can do that nobody else can do, and we're talking about, although we're partnering with the websites and the local, newspapers, but what we can do is what we're doing now. We can go live, get calls, get tweets, and have citizen journalists out there help us create the news show. So my concept is, in doing this, is that it would be an organizing tool for everybody to come together and report about our community to each other, about the community. And really, we welcome anybody that has something they want to contribute. We could use like film critics, and we do have a sports section, but we could have others. Right. And that's kind of the idea.
I mean, it's really a place where people can come and contribute. In fact, I will note that LMC TV and you, Eric, are contributing an awful lot of time and effort to getting this venture going. And the hope, I know, is that we can get the community involved in it more. Mm-hmm. Go ahead,
I
Mike.
would just like to raise an issue, if I might. If I was watching this at home, I might call in and say, when you read the Journal News or you look at the Loop or the Mamaroneck Voice or Larchmont Mamaroneck Patch, you're looking at the reporting from professional journalists who've had training, who've had experience, who know how to write a story and have a balanced point of view. When someone contributes a videotape or comes on to our show or calls in our show, how much do we believe? Can we put full credibility behind what they say? Maybe it's someone who has an axe to grind. Do we risk that? And what's the risk?
Well, we do, but I think that people have their opinions and issues that fall down on people have take sides on issues. But I think it's important to air these people's opinions. We'd draw a line at things that were salacious and libelous and just completely mean-spirited. But I think it's important for people to air what what they're feeling.
This is sort of like a living room where you have a lot of people sitting around and they're talking about an issue.
Yeah.
So
or the dining room table.
I can say okay, but I can
Right
say
here.
something that you disagree with, and as long as we allow full airing of an issue,
And a civil discussion.
right? Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
No, I think there's one thing that one of the things that we do at LMC TV that we can incorporate into the local live is we're talking about the LMC TV's ability to do the municipal meetings and all the school board meetings. Right. Mm-hmm. We're there anyway. Right. So one of the segments that we're hoping to create in the local live, and we already did in a couple of them, is that we'll take highlights. We call it highlights of the municipal meetings. Okay, you think
Someone called that a low light, but
well,
but they're important. The things that happen at these meetings are what is going on in this community.
that's right. And that in this community, people are very, very, very tuned to what's going on at the local meetings, and they watch our local meetings. I'd say they're probably one of our most watched shows.
And from that, there's actually a tweet again. Would you be willing to take on the different issues like Mamaroneck litigation? I'm not sure which Mamaroneck litigation they're referring to, but because there are many at various times. There is litigation with Mamaroneck Beach and Yacht.
Yacht.
I'm of course blanking on the other litigation, but would we take on those issues?
Well, the answer is we wouldn't take it on as a local live. What we do is present a platform for people to discuss it. So we wouldn't take sides. We would allow the various sides to present themselves so as to inform everybody with the original sources, with the real sources of opinion and the opinion leaders and the leadership of the community. So no, we wouldn't take sides editorially or at all. But
No, of course not.
We would bring the discussion to the public and allow the public to understand more of what's going on.
Maybe we could have the sides arm wrestle, and whoever wins decides the issue.
I was
And
thinking,
just eliminate the whole legal system.
what they have, when they got the two pistols out and
Well,
Alexander
that's a
Hamilton.
fatality. I would rather do an arm
Okay.
wrestle kind of thing.
Oh, maybe
Okay.
that's better.
Okay, the bottom line is we would certainly be willing to have discussions on the issue as long as all sides were represented, and we could have a civil discussion where people agree to disagree.
Yes.
Totally. So that's that's one of our functions.
So we've talked about how this is an opportunity for citizen journalists and how we need the citizen journalists. Eric, what do we want people to do? What do we need people to do?
Well, this concept of citizen journal, we need people who can be crew people, who can help, in the studio right here, behind that camera, and behind that camera. We need people who could be stage managers. We need people who can edit. We need people who can, who want to be reporters, who want to learn how to be a reporter, who want to help us gather the stories, identify people, who can help produce a show. What it takes to produce a show is basically deciding on a topic, calling the people up that you think would be good representatives of the various sides of that topic, booking them. That's the concept of booking, meaning basically you make
Arrangements for them to
make
come.
arrangements for them to come. These are things that everybody can help us do. And if anybody has a particular, beat that they want to cover, like the high school, Mamaroneck or Rhinebeck, they can do a little show on that. In fact, I just spoke to Rhinebeck about it.
But we can also could use people to be trained to screen our phone calls because we actually have a caller right now.
You do?
Yes,
Okay.
caller, go ahead.
Is LMC-TV looking to expand its municipal meeting coverage, like the Tree Committee or the Committee for the Environment?
Did you hear that, Eric? Which committees?
I think it was, are we planning to expand our coverage of municipal meetings to cover an environmental committee? Was that it, caller?
Yes.
That's what I heard.
Okay. Maybe. You're the first person to ask us to do that, so yeah, we'll consider that. We are mandated to cover the municipal meetings that the governments ask us to cover, and we do that. We've never said, oh, we can't cover this meeting.
That raises an interesting question, actually. Who decides which meetings we cover? Like, can we just go cover a meeting that we want to cover, or do we need to be invited to cover it with respect to municipal meetings?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've always felt that if it's a public meeting.
Let me just say thank you, caller, because
Yes.
we're jumping off your question into
Yeah.
this discussion. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
If it's an open public meeting, then any citizen can videotape it. That's the New York State law. We are budgeted and funded in order to provide coverage of municipal meetings and I consider it essentially at the behest of the government. So we're not going to barge in and cover a meeting necessarily if the government if they say, well, that this is beyond this is beyond what you usually cover, so whatever. But we have any citizen has the ability to do that. We will provide anybody with equipment and editing and whatever to go and cover a meeting, and they can air it as a show for themselves, as their show. Now, it's kind of like each case. I wouldn't say if there's something out of the ordinary of what we usually do. It's kind of we decide on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, well, this sort of gets us into the question or discussion of empowering citizen journalists. There's been, I guess you'd call it a movement people reporting from the street. I mean, you see, you get video, something happens, people are out there, we all have our phones that are camera ready. Mike, how do you see that this has changed how people can tell us what's going on in our community?
Well, as you say, the technology enables anyone who's got a smartphone with a camera, or people who are just carrying a camera around, to record something. But I think that also then raises the question that I raised earlier about how much trust we put in those stories, because when you shoot something, there's something that you're not shooting. So you're actually editing a story. You're not deliberately not telling the whole story, but you're not showing it all. And you're also not putting it in any kind of a context. So I think there are advantages to citizen journalists, and then there are some caveats.
That's okay. Well, we're going to use an example, actually, of how LMC TV can help empower people to report on their own. We have a video that was done by the Village of Mamaronec's Recreation Director, Roseanne Saraceno, and we're going to take a look at it now.
Tree lighting social in the wonderful village of Mamaroneck. And with me here we have some of Santa's friends, and you can hear that Santa's coming. We have our elf, our holiday tree. Thing 1 and 2 made it this year, and Cat in the Hat, and Santa's almost here, LMC. And then I'm gonna greet Santa and Mrs. Claus. So hold on to your hats, folks.
Well, I'm so glad to be here in the village of Mamaroneck, aren't you, Mrs. Claus?
Oh, Santa, this is the best place we visit. The children are so happy to see us all the time.
The decorations are so beautiful, and everybody's so happy we're here, and we're happy to be here.
We're happy to be here.
We want to thank LMC TV and all the volunteers today.
It's been a great day, and the snow is even coming to make it even more magical.
We made it special, didn't we?
Right, we did, Santa.
We love the village just like we love each other.
Oh.
So what we'd like to do is pan around the building and show you some of the gorgeous decorations that our volunteers and staff have put up. So, are you ready, LMC? In addition to what we'll see inside, we're also going to take a little walk outside of the beach pavilion out onto the beach itself, where we have a lighted scene that we put together.
Let's do a switch. Let's interview the Snow Queen. Now tell us the Snow Queen. This is going to be the last year for the Snow Queen, so we're really going to miss her. It will not be the same without Roseanne.
Now, one thing that we probably should make really clear is the Local Live is supposed to be your show. So we want to know what you want to hear, see, and discuss. We've come up with ideas for segments like Reporters Roundtables. Mike, you have a segment in the media?
I do. Well, basically what I do is the week of the show, I take a close look at the Journal News, and I look at the Loop, and I read the Larchmont-Mamaroneck Patch and the Mamaroneck Voice, and I try to find the hyper-local, the stuff that just pertains to Mamaroneck and Larchmont. And then I select a few of the highlights of that, and I present a sort of I just present the highlights. And it lasts for a couple minutes.
Right.
But there's no way that I could give all the news, so I have to give a lot of credit to those people who are out there also doing hyper-local news. Right. And you know, they also accept comments from readers. But what we do is accept live tweets and live call-ins and emails, right. and we can have a live discussion.
Exactly.
That's their limitation. So we don't see them as competitors. I mean, hopefully they see us as allies. Exactly. And we're all trying to get a civil conversation going about local issues.
So as we get the Local Live formatted, we have LMC TV sports producer does a sports segment for us. Often it's the play of the week, and they're great.
And that's the very capable Rob Moretti.
Thank you. Yes, and I'm trying to remember what. Eric, why don't you tell us some of the ideas that we have kicking around?
Well, one of our greatest assets is our senior news producer, Shayla Navarro, who's basically in charge of getting this whole shebang together. And she's produced numerous packages of which are stories that she goes out on location and shoots that have really illuminated, what's going on in the community at that time. There was she did one about the Cafe Mozart recently, and she was along Mamaroneck Avenue during various parades. She had a great piece that she produced along with another producer about the Duck Inn, which I didn't know was a place where, pirates used to keep their booty,
There's also a lighter side that she produces too. She goes and finds quirky kind of things, like she asked students, young kids, to tell us their favorite joke, and that was a fun element.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and Shayla's like a terrific leader of the local live. We're just sitting here basically because of her.
Well, the truth is we couldn't do it without her, and we just got an idea tweeted in about a segment. Someone would like to see the mayor come on every week for 5 minutes. Now, I don't know which mayor, I can guess, but let's just say they would like mayors and the supervisor in. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the mayor would love that. I'd say that's something we could balance with other people. Because the mayor does get a lot of FaceTime. He's on every.
Well, you're talking about the mayor of the Village of Mamaroneck.
Yeah. Or the other mayors. I'd say we could have a regular segment, not every week necessarily, where maybe all 3 mayors could be on, and people could call in. I did want to elaborate though a little bit about on that question of the caller that called in, and whether or not we would cover a meeting that somebody requested. And the answer is yes. If it's a public meeting from the government that a citizen has asked us to shoot, yes, we would do that. And whether we can do it regularly it might be a budgetary question, but we would absolutely do that. And if it was something that we had to consider to do regularly, we'd have to talk about how our budget on that. But generally speaking, we would do that.
While we're waiting for Maura to hear, we should mention that she's got somebody in her right ear.
Oh yes,
left ear.
Left ear. We've got a technology called interruptible feedback, or IFB, and
is that what it's called?
Yeah,
I never knew what IFB stood for.
Yeah, so Maura can hear the producer and the director
who is telling us to take a phone call right now.
Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead, caller.
It sounds like me. It sounds like me at the meeting.
That is
that
true.
could be the technology.
Why don't they call it IYE in your ear?
And we are trying to get this right. We're trying to learn the technology. Frankly, this is really my first time using the IFB, and I'm going to try to remember what it stands for. Now, as you probably can tell, it's pretty lively here at the local live, and particularly at LMC TV. I mean, just by our very discussion. Although we take our news seriously, we don't take ourselves seriously, and we like to have fun. And we're going to show you a clip of LMC TV's recent New Year's party.
Again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight to help us celebrate the end of the holidays and the beginning of a new year. Hopefully it'll be a healthy, happy new year and a very successful one for LMC TV to find a new consolidated home, hopefully at the Village Firehouse. But we're still working on it, and hopefully it'll come to fruition. And I'd just like to wish everybody a healthy, happy new year. And again, thank you once again. Salute.
I just have to point out that the singing must have happened, that you saw in the opening part of the clip, must have happened at the end of the party.
I just have to point out that I was exaggerating there, and I was acting, and am I glad, and whatever.
It's always a problem when there's a video camera around.
Oh God, yes. I can't
We have to start our wrap up now, so I'm going to ask both of you if there is anything that you want to say or get out there, final thoughts.
Well, I just want people to, you know, come and join us. Really, that's the main thought. We're thinking of holding a workshop on how to be a citizen journalist with your smartphone. You know, which is something we can, you know, everybody can do. You know, I just really want to welcome anybody who wants to help contribute to us.
Okay, but Mike, before we get your final
Phone call.
words, we have a phone call. Caller, go ahead. Caller. We'll see. Do we have a caller there? No. I guess we are having some technology.
yeah.
We're
Sorry
still,
about
we
that.
are still working it out, and we thank you for your patience. Mike, what are your final thoughts?
I would just like to add that especially anyone who thinks that they might like to be involved in television as maybe a second career or a first career, this is a wonderful training ground. You have an opportunity to be either in front of the camera, behind the camera, a sort of a no pressure learning situation. As someone who teaches television production, I think this is a very valuable experience, and it's free. You don't have to pay tuition to anyone, and it's fun.
That's great. Well, we want to thank you all for joining us on this Local Live edition. I'd certainly like to thank our senior news producer, Shayla Navarro, all of our staff who's really been very involved and helpful in this, and of course our volunteer crew. Get used to tuning in on Thursday nights at 7:30 on Cablevision Channel 75 or Verizon Channel 36, and check LMC TV's website, that's www.lmctv.org, for the Local Live on demand. Of course, if you're interested in working with the Local Live, email us, thelocallive@lmc-tv.org. Thanks again for watching.
Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is The Local Live.